Hi, David Berry here. I'm going to be giving you a reading of The Soul's Origin, The Next Phase, a book authored by a great gentleman I've come to know, 10 Bears. He's given me permission to read this book aloud on YouTube. It's a great book, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. I don't actually have a PDF of the book, so I can't put the pages up on screen, so you're going to be watching this nice video with the bears to go with the book. Music, as always, I converted to 432 Hz in the background for your enjoyment. Right, just on the inside of the book, 10 Bears writes, "Everything in this book is true, with the exception where I state I assume or imagine. Every experience and dream did happen. I have kept witnesses very vague. The best witnesses I have are the unseen, the ever-moving energy of the universe, and the stillness of time." He also writes, "I hope you enjoy some of the condensed moments of my life." I apologise for any background noise you can hear. I've been waiting for a long time now to read this book. To be honest, I got a bit fed up of waiting for it to be quiet in my house with 3 kids and the dogs and then all the other animals and what have you, other family issues, you know what it's like. I just got fed up of waiting, so I set up my recording equipment outside in the gardens, and a pretty nice evening, although it did have rain just now, so hopefully we won't have too many disturbances. Children still are awake, so you may hear them in the background. Hopefully they don't kill each other. But no, seriously, we'll be okay. Get down to it then. A few definitions of words before we get started on chapter 1. Logic, the study of the principles of reasoning, especially of the structure of propositions as distinguished from their content, and of method and validity in deductive reasoning. Spiritual death, thinking and actions are intended to cause harm. And spiritual living, the state of existence with regards for Creator. Dad, where did I come from? Where do you think? From your mum and I. Grandma said I was a gift from heaven, and I came from God. Your grandma was referring to your soul. My soul? What's that? I'll try and tell you. Sit down so we can talk. Chapter 1. The Brief Childhood. My entire life I felt something nagging me, pushing at me. I kept getting a sensation I needed to do something important, yet I could not figure out what that something was. Either it wasn't coming in strong and clear enough, or I wasn't focused enough to receive it. At this point, I must make the statement. The life I lived is not important to the content of this book, and by no means should anyone have to endure what I did to obtain or become what I have. I will not go into a drawn-out description of my entire life. I feel there is no need for that. What I will state of my past will be done so for the purpose of the subject matter when I feel it is appropriate. To appease those with curiosity, I will let you know I grew up in a poverty-stricken hotel in Southern California within the decade of the 1970s. I suffered and witnessed great abuse by a stepfather and some from a mother. that struggled with emotions. I did not know my stepfather was exactly that. I was lied to. My real dad, a very good man, did not know he was a dad. It was a secret that my mum held on to. She passed at an old age, never to reveal what she knew. Through prayer and Creator's will, the truth was exposed a few years later. I have not lived a sinless life. I did give in to some of the corruptness of this world. I wasn't a bad person with a desire to do wrong. I just gave in to mischievous temptation and pranks once in a while without desire to hurt others. As a child, I was not told anything about God or Jesus. What I did know came from holidays, movies, on the television. I had not seen the inside of a church in person. I was not taught a belief nor religion. It almost seemed like neither was allowed. Through all the turmoil at such a young age, I experienced something that I could only describe as an attachment to me. I didn't know of any such thing at the time. Starting from the time I was young, I felt I was part of something big, something I could not see or touch with my hands. Through the worst of the abuse, that something helped me feel I would be out of danger in time. I just needed to push through that turmoil and not give up, attached. I am almost positive I was 6 years old when I first saw him. The motel room had one bedroom and a very small kitchen. The kitchen was to the right of me. The entrance was an average-sized doorway. Back then, the television was on a bracket bolted high on the wall. Living with an abuser, I learned to use as much awareness as I could. Awareness was a necessity. Without it, hazards could sneak up without warning. I was watching the television when I saw, with my peripheral vision, a figure of a man walk slowly across the doorway that led into the kitchen. No, it was not a ghost. I remember its height was just under the top of the frame. He had an average build. I had no reason to fear him. He did not have that energy of wanting to scare. I knew it was male. He had the shape and essence about it. I felt it. He did not show up in a complete form. I only saw the outline. The outline was made of a blue static electricity. I remember the first time I saw him. The word static popped in my mind. I didn't know everything about static at that age. I understood what rubbing my feet on the carpet, then touching someone else afterwards would do. Nothing more. I saw him periodically until I was about 13 years of age. He seemed to show up right before I faced the trouble that proved in some disturbed adults that no child should witness or feel. I felt comfort when he appeared as my life collided with those distorted moments. Keep your head out of the muck you walk through. Don't breathe it, that's all I heard in my head. Did I need to hear anything else? At the age of 12, the right person with the right heart was put in place to help free me from the wreckage of someone's ill-fated thinking and desires. We went for a jog and I told him everything. I am forever grateful to that person. I'm being very vague of what I went through on purpose. This world we live in focuses on the negativity of society to attract attention. My goal is to attract your attention to the truth, the Creator, not the harm of the world. Focusing on Creator can keep society from harming the world. Let's make the statement real. I changed. I ain't like that anymore. You can trust me now. I love you. Chapter 2. The Ordered Marriage. When I was a child, I was told I was a small part American Indian, and the tribe was not known. Recently, through my dad, I learned a good part of me is Native American Indian. Without knowing this, I felt a pulling to learn of that spirituality. I had no way of learning that way of life. I had no resources to start that journey. I decided to just set that aside and take care of it if the time ever came. That moment came with such a force during my young adulthood. It was as if I was put where Creator wanted me, where Creator needed me. Those teachings became my foundation. I will not walk away from them, even though I feel I may have gone beyond that understanding of spirituality. That is not said from any form of ego. You will soon understand if you choose to continue to read what I am presenting. I did not participate within that spirituality perfectly through those many years. I had made both small and big mistakes during that long stretch. I struggled greatly to do the lack of self-discipline, lack of understanding life, and an overabundance of ignorance. No matter what I went through, I tried my hardest to stay with it. I kept my heart in that realm. All through my participation in this way of living for so many years, the questions from earlier continued to nag at me with a louder voice. I had walked through that door Creator had put in front of me. My mind and heart were opening. As the days passed, there seemed to be an urgency to find what I was missing, implanted by a spiritual force. There seemed to be a sensation of must-do to this task. Single for some time during the winter of 1998, I decided to ask Creator to show me the woman I should be with. That evening, I saw her in a dream. The dream I was in, foothills of the Sierra Mountains in California, standing on a hiking trail. Tall pine and cedar trees were all around. I noticed the familiar red clay soil beneath my feet. It reminded me of where I attended American Indian purification lodges. Right in front of me stood a woman that justified my soul to smile. I first reacted to her waist-long, black, well-formed, curly hair. I was captivated. She was facing me as I gleamed with happiness. I noticed American Indian Inipi Lodge, Purification Lodge behind her. I heard the words, "Will you marry me?" escape my mouth. That is when I woke completely dumbfounded. As proven to me, some of my dreams have come true. I will only mention some of them. I questioned myself, could this be? The dream stayed with me all day. Who is she? Where is she? Is she real? I thought to myself. Great, this is what Creator wants me to do. I hope the spirit world makes the job easy. That evening, I went outside to look at the evening stars as they began to appear one by one. Without a planned thought, I spoke aloud. You showed me who she is. Now please clear the path so we may be together as you wish. Months later, I was working long hours, up to 14 hours a day. Time and destiny arranged to coordinate with each other for a future for the world to know. I had abandoned the dream. I did not recall nor consider it for a few months. To take a break from the endless hours of work arrangements were made for me to go on a somewhat blind date. I fulfilled the agreement to take a break from what was becoming ordinary days. Skipping forward, we seemed to bond in many parts of life that were expressed. One obstacle persisted to be known no matter what turns were made. My heart was owned by the American Indian spirituality. Her heart and mind was owned by the Christian religion, a conflict governed by the lack of understanding as the history of the past proved. How could we exist hand in hand together? What could I expect in a future together? After a few dates, she invited me to her parents' house, hoping for their approval, in hopes to show she made a good choice. After some joyous conversations, she asked if I wanted to go for a walk on the property. I agreed. We were in the middle of the forest. Not realizing it, she had walked ahead of me. She took notice to the fact I was not beside her. She turned to look behind her to where I was. My eyes met her long black, well-kept, curly hair. I saw the purification lodge behind her. My dream rushed to take over the physical moment. It was her. I stopped instantly with a puzzled look on her face. She asked, "What was wrong?" I told her nothing. I did not ask. I told her, "You have to marry me." I didn't think she took me seriously. She gave a confused expression. She didn't know if I was serious. "What did you say?" "You have to marry me." She asked if I was serious. She had her own doubts due to her own issues. I told her I was very serious. I explained the prayers and dream to her. We were married the following spring, May 1899 to be exact. Did Creator love the conflict between Christians and American Indians? Was Creator expressing a sense of humor? How I laugh now that the plan of the past for both of us came to be that way. A few months after we were married, I had a short dream. The dream. I saw my new bride sitting on a couch that was posed against the wall, looking as beautiful as the day we met. Above her head and just to the left of her hung a crucifix with Jesus stretched across it on the wall. Just below the right arm of Jesus was a dark hole in the wall. Normally, the insulation within the wall would be seen. This hole was of absolute blackness. My attention to the hole was keen and sharp. A deep male voice came from within the hole. It spoke my name, P. "Are you listening? This is the voice of God." I woke instantly from my deep sleep. The urgency to do a task rushed in. I looked at my slumbering wife. I didn't know what at that moment she would have an important part for what was to come, what was needed to be known, the truth. I did get to know the person that conducted the purification lodge. He went by the name Crowbear. Through many conversations with him, we found our lives had been very similar. He was loyal and dedicated to the American Indian spirituality. Yes, I am using past tense terms when referring to him. Crowbear passed away about 8 years ago. My wife encouraged our friendship greatly. I will keep the information of Crowbear short, as I have always respected his request for privacy. I will speak of only a few events that I find relevant to my discovery. Crowbear was a sun dancer. He was very serious when he spoke of those ways. I talked with him about my wife's Christianity and how we struggled to bring both worlds into agreement. He told me he could not offer any advice to the matter because the two beliefs had clashed before on such a large scale. He was uncomfortable speaking about it. My wife and I were on our own with that one. I'll just call him Crow. Crow chose to fast for 7 days and nights. He found some information that spoke of putting the body through extreme conditions to induce enlightenment. He went without food for plus 5 years. A couple of years into his fast, he yelled at Creator, "Don't you see me? I am suffering for enlightenment. Why won't you gift me?" His heart was in the right place, but it was blocked by the ego. A few more years later, he developed a form of cancer that contributed him to be bedridden. I went to visit him one last time. We both realized it was a goodbye visit. I sat in a chair next to him. He turned and spoke to me. "Guess who came to visit me?" With the options being so vast, I just jumped to ask who. "Jesus came to talk with me. He stood right there where you are sitting." I had to know. What did he say? Referring to the pain caused by the cancer, Jesus asked me, "How is that for suffering?" Crow shook his head and replied, "It's a good one." He said Jesus smiled and then just disappeared. Crow felt I needed to know that for some reason, alright. I explained what transpired that day to him. I explained what had transpired that day to my wife. She asked what I thought of it. I realized American Indians may not resent Jesus if they related him to their own spiritual doctors and healers. Jesus did heal the wounded and sick. He gave hope in the spiritual form as it is practiced through the spirituality that I know. We both agreed and found a common ground we could rest on. That night, as I prayed, I thanked Crow for what he had given us. My wife and I miss him very much. There is no doubt within us that he knows we still love him. Creator sure has a way to arrange and reveal what is needed when asked. I had to be willing to do the work that was required to receive what I needed. Yes, I wanted to be married, but Creator wanted me to marry the one that fit the plan for me as well as her. Are we special, better than anyone else? No, we are not. We have gone through our troubles and trials like anyone else. What better way is there to learn other than experience? Chapter 3. The Search. Fast forward a few years, I arrived home from work one evening. I got out of my vehicle, made my way to the front door. I fell to my knees right when I entered the house. I had to crawl due to extreme back pain. My wife and child thought I was playing a game. The look on my face told them otherwise. Skipping all the tiresome details, the MRI report was 4 pages long. Somehow I broke a faucet joint, the hook-shaped bones that keep the vertebrae together in my lower back. I've worked with that condition as long as I could. The complicated injuries compiled enough to end my ability to work. With so much time on my hands, I didn't have much to do. Adjusting to not working caused a few struggles for my wife and I, to say the least. I was told I needed surgery as soon as possible. I could not accommodate that recommendation. I had to take care of some pressing issues that needed immediate attention that would last a few years. Not realizing what I was doing or what was happening, an unplanned isolation from population took place very quickly. I only stayed in contact every day with my wife, children, and extended family members. Living without an American Indian spiritual community, I grew hungry for that connection. Unwilling to leave my isolation, I dove into a deep pool of spiritual information I obtained through research. After all the reading, listening, and watching, I still did not find what was missing. I was searching for something that I knew nothing about. I didn't know what I was looking for, what I was supposed to find. Imagine being asked what you're looking for and your reply can only be, I have no idea. How mind-rattling. One search led to another. A few days later, I found myself reading something of Siddhartha Gautama's Buddha saying, I found myself very interested in that way of thinking. I gained a liking for his analogies. Shortly after, I stumbled onto the Gospels of Thomas, a collection of sayings that are like individual mysteries waiting to be comprehended as intended. The first line piqued my interest immediately. In short, these are the secret sayings of the spirituality of living Jesus. Oh, good secrets. I like to know things I am not allowed to know, I thought. I was like a child peeking at his birthday gifts before they were unwrapped. These are secrets written down by Thomas, a disciple of Jesus. I chose to read them all, 114. I wanted to know what secrets was hidden in every one of them. Time and time again, I revisited them, contemplating what the definitions were. I started to understand them, not as much as the potential that was available. That understanding was a start. Aside from a short opening statement, the first 3 sayings stayed with me for months. I have adjusted to not quote exactly for a reason. 1. Whoever understands these sayings as intended will not taste spiritual death. 2. Those who seek do not stop seeking. They will know they have found when they are disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will be in awe, and they will rule over all. 3. If your leaders say heaven is in the sky, then the birds go before you. If they say heaven is in the water, then the fish go before you. Rather, heaven is inside you and all around you. When you know who you are, you will be known, and you will know you are a child of Creator. I considered dissecting every saying, defining every word. I gave it a shot. Nothing seemed to change within myself. I understood them on a personal level, took it to heart at face value. Still was as I had always been, a very imperfect person. I continued to search. The search was not within pre-recorded information. The search was taking place within my own mind. Not good. From this point forward, I ask that you try to have a logical, open mind for the rest of what you will read. Once again, do not think you have to live as I did. Search what I have. I experienced my life as I did, and learned what I did as Creator provided, as what I like to think Creator wanted. For the next couple of years, I revisited what I learned within the American Indian spirituality, from the sayings of Buddha, from the Gospels of Thomas. I was seeing great similarities within the words that taught. I did not participate in any ceremonial rites other than my foundation that I could do within my own home. I knew I was still missing the big picture, the final show that would sometimes nag me inside my head. I guess they were ringing my bell. The time had come for me to have my spine operation on. The surgeon consulted my wife and I. He said the surgery would take 4 hours. I was comfortable with everything. I do not recommend doing what I did next. I told the nurse I did not want any pain medication at any point. The nurse looked at me with a look in her eyes. "A Mr. Tough Guy, we'll see." My wife chuckled and said I was going to need it. My eyes opened after the 7-hour surgery, my wife's hand in mine. Relief was expressed through her face. 3 nurses were fussing around me. "How is your pain?" "Still very groggy." I said I was fine. My wife asked if I wanted anything for the pain. I said Creator will help me. She told the nurses I was very stubborn and I may not take anything. The fussing ended and everyone left the room. I lied in the bed feeling quite calm and relaxed. A nurse came in every hour or so to ask how my pain was. You know the question 1 through 10. Mine was somewhere around 17. Very calmly, I refused the pain medication. I tried to think about what I was missed pertaining to spirituality. A thought entered me. Do this later, just relax. I stayed awake all that night. During that time, I got up and walked around the floor I was on. The morning came, time to call my wife. Happy to hear a voice, I asked her to come get me. Before she arrived, the surgeon walked in and asked how I was doing. I told him I was fine and wanted to go home. He looked at my chart and asked how my pain was. I replied, "It's off your chart. Can I go home?" He wanted to know why I wanted to go home. I needed lots of coffee and I had work to do. 3 hours later, I was home. I walked into my home carefully. I sat on the couch. My wife gave me a card and a gift. A get well soon token. I was amazed to find she didn't realize that a first edition book of the Gospels of Thomas. Encouragement. Did Creator know when the marriage was planned? Please, once again, try to have a logical, open mind. For the entire next year, I contemplated the 3 concepts of spirituality. An American Indian elder said the power was inside him. Buddha mentioned lighting the lamp internal. Jesus mentioned a person of light. I know those are not complete or exact quotes. They are the essential of the quotes. What were they saying? None of them being exactly forthcoming, defining the words left me where I was. I had to take a new approach. What did they know? I had to get in their mind. I had to know what they were thinking. I pictured each one individually sitting alone in their own area, as I was during the spring of that year, 2016. The light within me, the energy within me, I was on the threshold of the definitions, the threshold of knowing. The definition was not held in words or the mind, the soul. The soul didn't just define the words. The soul is the words, the voice of God. I had it backwards. The soul defines the words. The words, the teaching became tangible. I was able to feel them. The words, the voice of Creator, the one that created everything, were living within me. I found it. I found what was so secret. But why? Why now? Why am I supposed to keep it a secret? That didn't make sense to me. Creator knows I'm a blabbermouth when it comes to big stuff like this. I can see now that I am to tell the secret. The world in its entirety is in turmoil. It is the year 2020 now. I have been contemplating whether I should expose this truth. This truth is universal as it came from the Creator of the universe. This information is not intended to start a religion or rule over any group of people. This information is for each individual that has been looking, searching, and questioning. I sat quietly from time to time during the spring of 2016, wondering why I could not find what I was looking for. Even some of the greatest spiritual teachers of human history did not state exactly what I felt I needed to know. I was looking to find whom I was outside the human aspect of life, what was within my flesh. I thought about the concept that every soul on earth was in heaven before they entered the body of flesh. I thought about my own soul being in heaven. What about before it was in heaven? Within my experiences, I was told Creator created everything. The notion of something is created. It must have a creator came to mind. I asked myself, what would have the ability to create a soul? What is the soul like, and what was used to make it? These questions came up faster than you read them, almost as quick as I saw, felt, and knew what I was looking for the entire time. I laughed for a moment because the most important things any spiritualist should know was a humorous game of treasure hunt. After attending a few churches, reading information from some of the most influential spiritual teachers ever to exist, listening to what others have thought, I found it right here. I found it right where it had been the entire time since I was born. It was inside myself. What was I searching for? Creator's energy and aspects, wherever so small, hidden under the blankets of falseness societies created for me to believe in. That energy was like a small spark, waiting. The spark expanded rapidly the moment I found it. It was instantly there. I did not have to have time to form a quick-witted thought of what was happening. Creator, the parent of the soul, the truth to everything inside of me, freely. Creator enacted within my soul, my own soul, like a father passing the torch to the son once the son has learned. I am the child of Creator. I was living in spiritual death, resurrecting into a spiritual entity before shedding the temporary avatar of flesh. When realized all of the burdens of the economic society that had left, anger, frustration, hurt were gone, aspects of a self-produced ego were launched away, such as not being smart enough, strong enough, liked by others, all of it left. I remained feeling so lightened, clean, new, almost perfect without a flaw. My energy felt like it was merging with every creation on this earth. This was not being one with everything as much as being everything at once. I felt it all, with ego missing. I knew being more special than anybody else was impossible. That was important in itself. I knew instantly everybody could do, experience, or become as I did. What happened was special, not the person. The life I lived to get to this point was tailor-made for me, not you. I am giving you the destined results of every similar search through any human experience. I felt my energy wrap the earth. I did not make it do that. For that moment I could feel every living thing. I felt the earth living within me. I felt a fondness, much more than love for everything. I saw every person as a soul living on a physical aspect of heaven. I related heaven, having souls, to the earth being of the same nature. The physical is just not treated as such because of what the flesh needs to survive. Influenced by the gains of an enslaved economic society governed by corruptness, at this moment I knew my short life, sole purpose, was for self-discovery, cloaked in freedom of choice to be given to you. Can you hear the skeptics? Jesus is the only child of God. There can be no one else. They forget he tried to teach the people of his time to be like him. If that is accomplished, would he be a brother instead of a father? Please answer that only through logic. Chapter 4, Forgiveness. I cannot count how many times in my life I heard from so many people, God and Jesus will forgive all your sins, your wrongdoings. I took a moment during that evening for myself to think about what had and was happening to me. I focused on the emotions like anger and such that was blasted out of me. I started thinking of how nice it would be for everyone to feel that way. It came to mind that I may have been forgiven for all of my wrongdoings. I paused myself to think about the definition of forgiveness. Forgiveness is to do away with, forget, eliminate, to never be known again. I thought maybe I needed to ask Creator for forgiveness for how I reacted wrongly as a child after inheriting such a gift. I recalled the shame I felt after hurting others through anger, jealousy and lying. I started wondering how those lies turned out after infecting them with such negativity. I wondered if they infected others as a result of what I did. I began feeling a deep sorrow, a regret for the entirety of what could and may have been. The effect in this form of potentially is always vast. A profound thought developed in my calmness, asking for forgiveness for everything I did to others as well as myself was a selfish act. I could not go any further until I considered the ones I affected directly and indirectly. I tried to bring every person I may have hurt in all ways to the front of my memory while connecting with Creator in the way I have come to know. I asked for them to be allowed to feel the Creator's love along with mine and to bless them. At this point, I must ask you to recall. I participated in the American Indian spirituality and stayed away from religion. Remember how I saw Jesus outside the biblical icon that was created? Please understand the history of Christianity and American Indians. This is vital to what I am going to state next. Within that spirituality, Christianity is rarely, if not at all, mentioned. I myself was told by an elderly Christian I was going to hell for my beliefs. If that was the case, the following would not have happened. I went to bed that night feeling calm and relaxed, focused on my energy that was like Creator's. I focused on merging mine with Creator and Heaven's energy. I did this until I fell asleep. Sometime during my slumber, I woke up almost like a commanded robot. That is the only way I can describe it. I sat upright, then turned to put my feet on the floor. As soon as I stood up from my bed, everything around me in a quick instant changed at once. I was no longer in my room, nor was I on earth. I found myself standing on an endless sea of white clouds, staring at the distant sun in the blue sky. I noticed I was able to look at it without my eyes being affected in any way. The sky was pure blue with no hint of smoke to shade it. I noticed how boundless it was from any effect of gravity. I felt no heavy effects of the human body. I noticed there was no temperature to be felt. Immediately I realized my own temperature was part of the atmosphere, and neither were felt. I was so pleased with the absolute quietness that surrounded me. No cars, no jet engines, no phones ringing. There were no produced sounds of any kind from an active population. I had never felt so comfortable and relaxed with so much awareness of where I was and what I was a part of. I was all of it. I was my own thinking mind. My own thinking mind was halted in silence, so I could experience that moment to the fullest of what I was allowed. I noticed my own body. Parts I could see was not of flesh and bone. What I was made of had no particular sensation I could feel. It was as if I had always existed as, the only way I can describe the substance, as a thick white fog. I never imagined fog having an energy that could be controlled enough to make a form. To this day I do not know why I was not in my human form. With my head turned to the left, I continued to admire the blue sky with the bright sun when I heard a voice mention, "So you figured it out." What was said had more than one temperament tone to it. At the same time, it sounded like a question, a statement, and an assigned task with a purpose and a goal that had been fulfilled. At this point, I asked that you please remember what I mentioned of the American Indian spirituality and my vague experience of religion. I turned my head right after I heard the voice. Dressed in what I recognized as a long white tunic with a thin gold belt around the waist. A white so pure and a gold so brilliant colours I had never seen before. Was Jesus with a pleasingly proud smile? His hair was a light brown that almost reached his shoulders. He wore a cleanly groomed beard and moustache that was not of great length. Sound like me? I responded to what he said very calmly. Yes, I guess I did. I was amused and amazed at what I was. I was amused and amazed to what was happening. The moment felt like it was almost expected. I did not have any sensation of an arrogant ego within my voice. There was no thinking of how great I was. I don't know how much time had passed for all that to happen. Waking in bed till the next day was the next thing I remember that happened. I started my day in the same routine as always. Pour a cup of coffee, then stepped outside to see the day that was filled with creations. I didn't give any thought to what happened the night before. I took the time to allow the coffee to do its job, 12 cups worth. I kept quiet for a while. I didn't mention what happened to anyone. I didn't want to give what happened any attention for a good part of the morning. I recalled the entire experience after helping my family get comfortable for the hours of the day at hand. It was a typical family morning, excitement, laughter, and the dreaded chores. After addressing what needed attention, I decided to go back outside and think of what took place. I replayed the words, "So you figured it out." in my mind a couple of times. I questioned what I figured out with a degree of confusion. I thought that statement referred only to my addressing the incomplete concept of forgiveness, care and love of the ones I hurt unintentionally and intentionally, simple yet incomplete. I remembered the phrase, God and Jesus will forgive you for everything you do wrong. That statement always bothered me because I continued to feel shame and guilt for things I did so long ago, even from my first years of elementary school. I didn't feel forgiven with that living inside me for so long. To help complete the concept of forgiveness, I thought of families that may have had one member isolated due to problematic desires. Those desires that hurt the family unit, contributing to a separation or break. The isolated member is allowed to rejoin when there has been a complete and permanent change. That change cannot take place in just the mind. It must be accomplished in the heart. The heart is where the desire lives. When the desire is changed, the spiritual energy is changed. Right after that thought was completed, I felt a hand enter my chest, then wrap around my heart and gently squeeze it 4 times. That happened twice in a row. Simultaneously, I felt every inch of my own heart with a visual of what it looked like. I then understood I was not born to sin, as I was told by so many people. I was born to discover. I then felt an invisible hand gently stroke my forearm. Once again, I was wrong. What I figured out was not isolated to just the act of forgiveness. It was everything. I figured out what being a child of Creator was and who it is for. I figured out the soul, what it was made of, and who made it. Chapter 5. Born to Sin. I was born to sin. I am a born sinner. No one is born perfect. I never understood how this could be fact. No matter how I gave the concept attention, I could not agree. I observed my own children when they were infants. Looking at them, I saw a soul fresh to the earth. I thought of the years of life in front of them. I thought of the years of life behind me. I understood they knew nothing of what this world was about. I thought of what I had to tell them, warn them about. At that time, I could have almost heard them ask from the future, Dad, why is the world like this? Why do people have to be this way? Now that we are all a little older, with the changes that took place within myself, I have told them what I know. Infants live by instinct and reactions. They only want what they need, like food, warmth, cleaning for comfort, but most important, love. I was able to tell them the acts of so-called sins are caused by obsession and desires. They usually come in effect together. I taught them to always be cautious of wanted more than want. I taught them to always be cautious of wanting more than what is needed. If something is desired to the point of willing to hurt someone in any way to obtain it, then it is wrong and lead to an act of sin. Fortune and power over other people are two of the problems that has caused most of the suffering throughout the history of humankind. Sins start out as desires and develop into uncontrolled obsessions. I taught them having an abundance of anything would be alright to have as long as no one got hurt and they maintained a good heart. There is nothing wrong with collecting or wanting. After all, it is the spirituality that I wanted and the wisdom I collect that does not hurt anyone, does it? Can I have an overabundance? They're being taught how an unsatisfied urge can become uncontrollable, how an urge can lead to a false feeling of pleasure that will not last but for a moment, and that can become an uncontrolled hunger of a constant want. I explained how desiring things of a good nature can be both a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes a person with a good heart loses the ability to say no when it is needed, only to avoid hurting another person's feelings. That act could lead to loss of any type or variation within their own life. It is healthy to say no. Recently, an adult person with Down syndrome testified before a government for the right to live. He was concerned for his life due to the fact that some people think those that have Down syndrome are a burden to the economic system, where everyone should work and pay into that system. I looked at that person in a manner I was gifted with. I saw a person that had love for everyone. They had a smile that was not governed with a false need to show. I saw a person that would never want to hurt another human being for any reason. That person was fully aware of the way they wanted to be, and it was their own choice from their heart, from their soul. I wish the world could see the joy and happiness in those lives, and what a perfect example their hearts are. Childlike with mature concern, genuine love, effortless self-discipline, giving without the want of return. They have no hunger for power over others, content when they enjoy everything that is around them. They almost always want to help others. I thank Creator for allowing me to see this in my own Down syndrome daughter and share it with you. My daughter's name is Sage Sky. That is her first and middle name. She knows her name is in the book. I wish you could see her smile. These people do not fear evil spirits, sometimes only wrongful people. I consider the notion of not being born to sin greatly for those that are involved in religious groups and those that listen to others that claim to be the authority of such teachings. I assume there would be someone that would argue or discredit me, so I factored in what they know. As I have heard from a few areas within many religions, they teach and quote Jesus saying, "Go forth, sin no more." I must make the point right here that so many people have and continue to use this to justify their ill-intentional behavior. The gift of forgiveness is abused. Humankind has been known as the dominating species of the earth, the apex hunter, killer, and ruler of the planet. That is not the reality. Something else has taken that stand a long time ago and still holds that title: desires. Desires for a person causing a hunger for greed, power, and control over others. Obsessive desires are the predator that devours the human heart and even the soul's natural energy. Go forth and sin no more. No more, not again and again and again. Sin no more. I saw the intent in that statement. Live without sin, without intent to sin. Do not be corrupt. Be without corruption of any kind. Be perfect, as I am. The potential for every person to be perfect has always been in front of their eyes, in their ears, in their hands. Only a question remains for this topic: what will you do? If they raised an infant and taught them about desires and how to control them, not to want power and control, to love and be without hate, would they grow to be perfect? Chapter 6. Forgiving others. Why? Through the years, I have encountered many people that have been curious to know what abuse I experienced and witnessed. I would be and continue to be vague of what happened. My tone of anger towards abusers, mostly my stepfather, would be detected. When detected by certain people, they would state I need to forgive them for what they did to me. If I didn't, then I am making as big of a sin as they are. I questioned if I needed to forgive them for quite some time. I struggled for a long time with this. I asked many people I thought would know of this action fully. The only answers I received were, you have to love them, and if Jesus forgives them, then you should too. Love someone that was forced to stop their abusive thinking and behaviour that may not have ever rid themselves of such deep-seated desires. I could not see how this was possible. I could not understand how someone could deserve forgiveness, wiping the past away like it was never there, if they did not change their desires and wants. Never finding a logical answer, I concluded to myself that I should just leave it alone for a while. The time has come to address this issue that I have avoided for so long. I thought about being in heaven. From all I have heard, there is no abuse there. I thought, what a nice reward for all the people with good hearts. That is when it hit me. What I can love, what I don't have to forgive, and what I can forgive. I saw myself as a person with truly good intentions, welcomed in heaven very easily. I was greeted with love and full acceptance, much like a familiar reunion. With pride, I was shown the life I lived when I resided in the flesh. I was shown how I conducted my actions according to my desires, how I kept away thoughts of wanting to hurt others such as possible. I was shown where I could use some improvement and how I would be taught very easily, very gently, with a job well done. I was welcomed home. Then I pictured myself as someone who would hold onto emotions like anger, hatred, and had little love for others. I imagined being told I had to rid myself of those things and learn about love along with loving others. As I am telling of this, I am inclined, almost pushed to tell of a dream I had, a dream that seemed so real. The dream, I was flying through the air like a bird. Two people were flying in front of me, one just a bit in front of the other as to lead. I could tell we were no longer human in the flesh. I recognized one of the two as someone I knew that died some time ago. We were, as most would call, spirits. We were in soul form, like being on the cloud. I did not feel the weather or gravity. We flew a great distance in such a short amount of time. I did not know where we were. I didn't recognize anything. We came to a stop and hovered in the air. We held the positions we were in as when we were flying. We hovered over a house for a moment. As I observed from behind, I sensed there was work that needed to be done. After a moment, the roof of the house went invisible. I was able to see inside. There were two people inside relaxing in reclined chairs. I did not know these people. I thought they were two random people that were picked for what needed to be done. The spirit that led the other spoke. Okay, you need to pray for them. The other soul then followed the direction as I stayed silent, looking at the two below. God, please bless these two people. There, I did it. Can we go now? That prayer was said with a great amount of emptiness, superficial. It seemed as if the prayer was said to obtain the gift of living in heaven. The soul that gave the instruction replied to the attempt with a bit of frustration. You're just not getting it. The soul then looked back at me and requested, please take care of this. I felt there was a need for this task. Those people needed a prayer. I was not concerned for the reason. I was concerned for doing what needed to be done for those two people. I did as I was asked. I heard myself ask Creator to love and bless them. I understood they either needed or was going to need the extra help. My own love went to them. As soon as my words ended, the two left, then I woke to the day. What may have happened when she died? She was shown what heaven was like, a reward, an honour that ever was. She was shown her entire life, the pain from the past that must have been painful to watch in front of others. Then she was shown the pain in the present she left behind. She had become compassion and empathy. That dream received quite a bit of my attention during the day that followed. As I looked at it closely, I started seeing something hidden, an existing element that was not told in the dream. The soul that led the other was a guide, a mentor and a teacher with trusted mature leadership that held authority to make decisions accompanied with judgment. The mentoring soul's task was to help the soul not just learn, but change completely, permanently to become what is required by those that govern in heaven. Yes, you read that correctly, required in heaven. I will explain that towards the end of this chapter. Excuse me. As for the souls that do not want to change, I can only make an assumption of what or where they go and experience. I pictured myself after death not wanting to go to heaven, wanting to stay on this earth as a soul and not the flesh. I would be subjected to observe all that happens on earth, from the very best to the very worst. I can't imagine there would be much of a choice. I would have to endure all the changes that would be in the advancement of the time that we know. I would have to witness expressions of love, hatred, caring, suffering. The list is of a great length. Would I exhaust myself of seeing so much? Only for the sake of what I'm telling, will I at this time imagine what I would experience if I was one of the worst people that did not want to change at all? Remember, this is only what I think. I will let you decide if there is any logic presented. I pictured myself, as difficult as it was, to be the most morally corrupt human being, hurting others for enjoyment, making others feel bad, inflicting pain of all types. I had to add murder for the sake of being the most. Remember, these actions were to keep me entrained and smiling, and it was imagined for the sake of understanding. Listening to screams and cries pleased me. Other people's anger made me smile and laugh. I used my wife to serve me, tell her she has to submit to me. I would force her to do my will. I imagined having ownership of her like an object. I deny her being an individual of Creator's energy. Maybe I asked an evil entity for power and help with my way of being to provide those things for me. I imagined being ignorant of Creator, having complete command of all that is created, command of everything. I imagined dying in this state of existence, taking every memory, every thought with me. I go to a place where I am shown the life I lived. I smile thinking it was good. I wish for more. My soul is then rushed to a place of pure darkness, alone and suspended in an absolute dark void. A voice speaks up, "Let me give you what you would like." Suddenly, my dedicated space is filled with every scream, cry and angry reaction that was expressed as a response to my actions. All that suffering surrounding me all at once, never to end. I find myself wanting it to go away and never to return. I start understanding how the ones I hurt felt. I start feeling the same way. I wanted the pain from the torment to stop. I start to understand what Creator is showing me, telling me without words. I start caring, loving, changing, and as I do, I am lifted little by little from that torment until I am changed eternally. I became a soul worth claiming to reside in heaven. I saw how being in environments of these souls could provoke and teach empathy, as empathy is a much needed ingredient to be of such a heavenly being. I personally did try to imagine myself feeling all the pain I have caused others in this world. I recall how I used the excuse I am only a human being. Being only human was used to justify my behaviour and thoughts. I tried to soften the impact of what I did wrong by labelling those events as mistakes. I labelled what I did as wrong choices that I made. Every moment always has multiple universes of choices, all leading back to the designated ending. I did see where I had to physically defend my life. Had I not, maybe you would not be reading this. You can decide if defending yourself is allowed. Like I said, you might not be reading this had I not. At this point, I think it is fair to say whether I forgive others or if others forgive me has no effect on any misdoings in the past, present or future. I found putting forgiveness where it belongs in the hands of the spiritually matured frees me from wanting justice, vengeance or any other ill emotion that would burden my soul. For a person to grant forgiveness would be to take that responsibility away from Creator, Jesus or whatever your belief is. I will suggest not to take pride in a soul that may suffer in the afterlife. Do not find pleasure in it, for that will just damage you. That would be spiritual death. This way of life I'm telling is of spiritual life, spiritually alive. Never forgive if the person or soul changes their energy, they become worth saving. Sorry, that was never forget. If the person or soul changes their energy, they become worth saving. I can disassociate from others that have intent to hurt me with no regret. If I don't, I may subject myself to keeping hurtful emotions within my soul and die with them, resulting with the requirement of a mentor to teach me to not retain that energy. I know I can make the transformation now, if that is what I want. Would that even be considered miraculous? As I mentioned before, there are requirements to reside in heaven. I can only find one way to explain this. Creator created heaven as a reward for the goodness we become. It is our choice to live there if we like. That place is kept spiritually clean. No harming spiritual energy has the power to be there. Think of your own home. Would you let in a person who intends to hurt you? Would you let a person expressing anger into your house? Would you let people like you in? Would you let any religious person in your home that you do not agree with? That would force you to believe in their faith. Would you require respect, kindness and consideration? Imagine allowing 20 different people into your home. Your requirements would be for all of them to behave in the same manner. I think it is fair to say you would have to excuse judgment, to exercise judgment. If we are to conduct the earth as if it is heaven, then we would have to do the same. Does this justify putting someone in jail? I would think so, but with the intent of learning of the wrong they did with the results of changing energy. Maybe it should be required, I cannot say for certain. Who were those people I prayed over? I came to know and love those two people months after that dream. The man, a Vietnam veteran, first-class sergeant, and his wife, approximately 50 years, who have helped and cared for so many people. They are my dad and stepmom. I know Creator had arranged that. How else could it be done when they live over 1,000 miles away where I had never been before? I saw the lesson and reason for Creator and Heaven wanting to bless and love those two people. Yes, Creator and Heaven has love for war veterans. It was my biological mother that kept her pregnancy a secret. She created an illusion to be believed that another man had been my father. Her